back of the van. Hello and welcome back to the back of the van. I'm here with my co-host Dal Worster again, and we are with John Houlihan, who's going to introduce himself because he's got a lot of letters after his name, a lot of titles over his name and everything. So John, tell us about yourself. Who are you?
Who am I?
Who the hell are you?
Yeah. My name's John Houlihan. Yeah, I'm a member of the Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. I'm a chartered member. Been in the scaffolding industry all my life. Been in health and safety for the last 20 years. I sit on the board of health and safety for the Scaffolding Association, which is quite interesting. And I've been in and around scaffolding companies and jobs all my life, and now from a professional stance I look after scaffold companies and workers, operatives, and have worked in health and safety throughout the construction industry, not only scaffolding. So yeah.
And health and safety, scaffolding is obviously renowned as a dangerous job, or has been renowned as a dangerous job, and the idea is not to be dangerous, but you've seen that change over your career, haven't you? How it's changed from day one to today?
Yes, and thankfully the statistics for scaffolding since the introduction of approved codes of practice for scaffolding, the industry has got an awful lot safer. The NASC, the National Access and Scaffolding Confederation, have just issued their new guidance, which is SG422, and they've seen, since the introduction of SG4, they've seen an 87% decrease in accidents.
Wow.
So the introduction of that safety guidance has come a long way in decreasing accidents across the industry.
It just goes to show that guidelines do work, laws, rules.
Yes,
whatever you want to call them.
Is
Yeah.
there for a reason, and it's to protect workers and protect their. It's often, rebuked by many, even companies, but it is there for a reason, and if used in the right way, can go a long way to
Even safer place.
protecting companies and workers alike. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, this construction industry as a whole, we seem to be in a position where a lot of it is price driven, and unfortunately, health and safety. There's a good line. If you think health and safety costs money, try having an accident, and that puts it into perspective of how much it does cost. But good health and safety management, unfortunately, does cost money. But if taken on by companies and by industry, it also promotes all the benefits that come with it.
Becomes an investment, yeah.
So rather than compromise on quality and approved codes of practice within the industry, as in working how we should be working, things get compromised where accidents still happen. But I think it's in all of our interests to drive that forward rather than focusing on price-driven projects as to quality, health and safety management, and the protection of people.
Yeah, that's what we see massively. I always see everyone says, what is the reason why mental health is so bad in the industry? Just programs and pressure, all the time.
Yeah, mental health obviously falls into the category of health and safety, person's welfare, which I would say their behaviour, a lot of causation for accidents and incidents is predominantly person's behaviour.
Yeah.
What they do on the front line of their workstation, wherever they're working. Playing into that, a massive part of that is mental health. That person's, we don't know what has gone on whilst they're at home, what troubles they're in. They go to work and it does come out. It comes out in their behaviour, their attitude, their aptitude, everything.
do you find that those problems, say, come out in the worker when the instance happens, from an investigative point of view, come out at investigation level as well? That
Yes, if an incident or accident or even a near miss is investigated thoroughly, there's not many stones that are not unturned, and those that are turned, mental health will play a part of that investigation. And there can be a catalogue of reasons leading up to an event happening, and it's then worked out, which events led up to that event happening, and there could be many. So mental health, a person's state of mind, he could be overworked, tired, he could be fatigued, he could have financial difficulties, he could have marital difficulties. So all these influences can influence a person's ability to work safely.
Yeah, I think I took a lot more interest in it as well. We had one close call, should we say, but it was on AMK Deepham's, Acon Murphy's Kia job. We were there, and the crane operator was working with a slinger, and he went to lift something, and he noticed the driver, the crane driver operator, noticed that the sling weren't on right. Something was incorrectly done, and he stopped and had a chat with the slinger, rightly so. Said, "What are you doing?" So they worked together all the time, so they knew each other well, thankfully. I said, "What are you doing? That's not right." I said, "What's on your mind? Because it must be something. You don't do that." And he simply said, "I've left my keys, I've left my wallet in my locker, and I don't think I've locked it." And that was on his mind. And that's our instant was like, that's mental health as like a minimal. It's not a major issue, but it's if something's on your mind, that's in your mental health. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of, and they nipped it in the bud there and then, and they avoided potentially killing someone. The job we're lifting heavy loads around. So
But even if you take that to the extremities of what you said, like people having marriage issues, or even on the way to work, seeing a car accident or something like that.
Yes.
So, and this is the problem with it. If you don't talk about it, no one knows it's happened. And then when it comes to the investigation side of things, well, we didn't know anything about it. That's point one. Point two, if you do know something about it, what have you put in place? Where's the duty of care to make sure that person's all right to continue slinging, scaffolding or whatever, where you are putting yourself at risk going to work?
That's right. So that reveals the importance of good mental health as opposed to bad mental health, and what impact could bad mental health have in the workplace. And it can have all sorts of people can get killed, and accidents, catastrophes can happen. But you've just given an example where a person's mind weren't where it should have been. So human error, and he was thinking of his wallet and the money and his cards and his driving licence and all the rest of it, which then deflected from what he should have been doing, slinging that load properly. So it's as simple as that.
As I'm trying to, you look at, I can't remember what the figures are now, but if you actually look at incidents and accidents on site are caused, I'm sure 98% of that are all human error, pretty much. It's, not much happens without a human doing something wrong.
Once you put humans in the mix, then there's a lot of things going on that really are not considered where they should be considered, and mental health is a big player,
a massive part of that,
which previously wasn't even thought about. But luckily enough, the likes of Construction Sport and the other organisations out there that are dealing with mental health within the construction industry are bringing this to light and making it more prevalent
and that's
in
even
the
to
workplace.
The point of that guy he's got nothing wrong with him, but he doesn't enjoy his job in comparison to the guy in the same job as him who does enjoy his job. And there's a difference between how many issues he's had before and how many accidents between the two of them. It's just a difference between cultures
and
in workplaces.
Cultures in workplace, if we look at why people enjoy their jobs, that would be predominantly down to the company who employs that person and how much investment they make into that person as engaging, consultation, everything that man is care. So the culture within a company matters.
And I think a lot of people say, it's just all about the money, it's all about the money, guys go the money. But I think when people are in companies and they do get looked after, I think a lot of us have a few more morals and hearts are in a better place to go, I do get a bit more money down the road, but it's going to come with all the shit that comes with it as well. And rather than I'll get paid a tenner less maybe, but I know they're going to look after me. And
Yeah.
if I did something happen to me or to my family, then I know I could have a bit of cover just to help me out. Just
Yeah,
all those little things, isn't it?
You find a lot of people that when they work for a good company, they never leave it.
Yeah.
They stay on there. They're not looking for,
The grass isn't green.
you know, you're not going to become a millionaire, you know, being employed, are you? So
No.
you're going there, your welfare, your well-being, your enjoyment out of what you do, you know.
Yeah.
I was involved with scaffolding and I was on the tools for many, many years. And now from this side of the fence, I feel that I've got a lot to give into the scaffold industry from my position now, and it wasn't easy to get there as a chartered practitioner. But I think the more you can give back into the industry, the better.
Yeah.
So,
It
yeah.
goes back to that, what Paul said about the experience, isn't it? That top umbrella that looks after the guys underneath, like that experience of, I know what you're going through, I know it's cold out there, I know it's hard, I also know that how much your personal life can impact on your day.
Yeah.
Instead of having someone that hasn't had that, never experienced that, running the show a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Because it's never going to be a pretty industry, is it? It's always going to be cold. It's always going to be winter's always going to be winter. And the summer's always
Scaffolding
gonna be
is a
hot.
high risk industry, and it's a very hard industry, as in, you know, the physical side of it alone. You know, never mind the environment, but the physical side of scaffolding is very hard. Equally, a lot of other trades are very hard as well, all in their own, you know, ways.
Right, yeah.
But scaffolding is a very physical job, and it's come on leaps and bounds
Yeah.
in the last 20 years
Yeah.
with regards to working practices. That professionality that the industry needed has been driven in a big way.
It's been driven quite well then. We didn't even speak to Paul earlier actually. So he's saying about all the accreditations are in place and standards that all get
Career
put out
paths and
there.
all
Career
that kind of
paths,
thing,
yeah, everything is.
Yeah,
And it's not, we just saying now,
very
but
well
it's
structured.
It's not just a bolt and a belt and a wrench and a belt, or whatever you want to call a spanner and a belt. A bit
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
very well structured, the industry, the training side of it. A lot of the scaffolders won't agree with certain parts of the training side of it, portfolios and stuff they have to do, but it's very structured. Yeah, and it's brought that professionalism
For a reason.
to the industry.
Yeah.
I'm also involved, I developed a product within the scaffold industry.
Yeah.
I invented it. It's called ScaffGap. We've got a company called ScaffGap Ltd, and we sell ScaffGap to every distributor, supplier of scaffolding throughout the whole of the United
I
Kingdom.
like this because you've spoken to me briefly about it before actually, but the idea of this is it works in line with the standards. What's show that things shouldn't fall through scaffolding base, isn't it? Working at height.
Yeah,
Actually,
so the
Quite
approved code of practice for scaffolding is TG 2021. So within that standard, which is the latest standard that every scaffold company has to work to within the United Kingdom, and that's based on the European standard, which is 12811, BS 12 EN 12811, and all the scaffolding guidance is written in combination with the work at height regulations and all the other legislation that applies to scaffolding. So the work at height regulations stipulates working at height and working platforms and what should be the standard. So the approved codes of practice for scaffolding are written in conjunction with what the work at height regulations say. So for years I was going around building sites, construction sites, and it was a major problem that on scaffolding the gaps within the working platform created a real risk. It was a hazard where anything could fall down it. So on this particular site I was on, I think it was a Kears site over in Woolwich somewhere, and we were scratching our heads. Well, I was scratching my head, thinking there must be an easier way of doing this than what they're doing. And they had a carpenter full-time going around cutting bits of timber and putting them in gaps on scaffolding. They were going through untold sheets of ply, and it was a full-time job, and I thought, how much is that costing? So I came up with the idea.
Especially nowadays, bit of fly.
I come up with the idea of a plastic clip-on solution that created a threshold on the working platform. So I developed it, and as we come along now, today, I'm supplying lots and lots of companies with it, and I've got 4 different versions of
I
it.
can say, yeah, different size.
Tube and fitting scaffolding, cup lock scaffolding, composite boards, and now I've just developed one for layer.
Okay, yeah.
So that's going out there now as we speak.
Yeah,
you
so
know,
we'll give that a plug in here. ScaffGap, it's got a website, isn't it?
yeah, www.scaffgap.co.uk.
Yeah, super. So it's literally, if you want to comply with the standards, you have ScaffGap basically. Isn't
Yes, it's yeah.
But now you think that there's so many people obviously going around there who don't still, isn't it? The
No,
standards,
yeah.
many standards, not just scaffolding, but we've briefly spoke about before that there's so many standards still not being worked to.
Well, ScaffGap is driven really by principal contractors,
Yeah.
because scaffold companies would see it as an extra cost, understandably so.
Just like mental health, though. Really,
Exactly. So when principal contractors specify how subcontracted scaffold companies are going to put up scaffolding, if they comply to the letter of the law, they would insist on covering gaps.
Yeah.
Many of them don't, as you pointed out.
And that is my thing, and even with the top contractors to government, basically, that is where the decisions are really driven from, isn't it? Because everyone else has got a
Top down.
Yeah, it's got to,
top
isn't
down,
it?
yeah.
And I'm fed up with literally hearing people saying we've got to help the companies down there. These companies got to do this, they've got to do that. It's like, they can't afford to do that. They're under too much pressure from the top.
Yeah.
And I see it day in, day out through construction support and through the business side of things. And it ain't going to change unless the people at the top change it, are they? So
That's right.
and then it starts to filter all the way to your local DIY, doesn't it? Really, it's like Ivy's jackets or toe cap boots. Looking at
the scaffold industry, I remember when harnesses came out first, and I was on a job in Tooley Street, and the Lord Mayor's building.
Yes, yeah.
Next door to that are 3 blocks, and that was run by Mace and McAlpine. And I was on there for there was 26 scaffolders on there. Some boys that come down from Scotland, they were on there. A guy called Peter Kane and his crew, a very good friend of mine. And the guy we were working for, Irish fella, and I said to him, well, I was a foreman scaffolder on there. I was running the whole thing. And I said to the guy we were working for, I said, Jerry, I said, the boys are looking for harnesses. He said, Jesus, they'll be wanting suits next, he said. And that was his, he said, harnesses.
Yeah.
Jesus, they'll be wanting suits next, he said.
Yeah.
So that was his,
Yeah. And now you wouldn't think, I suppose the boys wouldn't touch a scaffold without one.
I was down in Bath, and I had to visit Mr. Dyson's house.
Yes. Yeah.
So he was building a house on his lake, Mr. Dyson, and I had to meet a director of a scaffold company, and we were going to look at the lake and the proposed building, because what he wanted to do was build the house on the side of the lake out of scaffolding to see what impact it would have on the local landscape. So we went down there, and I was consulting about the scaffolding. And we just had the introduction of gloves, hand protection, into the scaffold industry.
Yeah.
And I was talking to the guy from Bath, the director, in his Range Rover, about hand protection and gloves within the scaffold industry. The guy nearly crashed his Range Rover. He said, gloves in the scaffold industry? He said, what are they, pansies? And this attitude. So the evolution of all these safety measures, that if you look at the NAS statistics, 87% reduction in accidents, falls from height, it all has an effect which these people couldn't really grasp it.
Yeah.
You know, they'd
So
be
it makes
wanting suits next, and are they pansies because they're wearing gloves? But it's all important.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy, isn't it? You just think, you like to think, in 20 years' time, we'll be looking back and saying, whatever's implemented by that time in terms of mental health, but you remember when it wasn't? And I think
Exactly.
Yeah. How do we go by it? How did the boys go by it?
And fair play to you,
Yeah.
Steve. You know, you've got
it.
hold of this and you've run with it.
Yeah.
And look where you are now.
Yeah.
You know, you've come a long way in
Yeah,
that
sure.
promotion of, you know, mental health within.
Yeah. Well, that's what you said actually from the start of it. I was like, look, I think single-handedly going to change it, but I can ruffle enough feathers and shake the tree enough for people to go, right, we need to change it.
Well,
really.
you're planting the seeds for.
Yeah. And then once
the
it changes,
future.
I'll take all the credit then. So it was all me. It was all me.
Well, you've done a good job so far, and more.
We're getting there.
More power to your elbow.
Power to the people.
Yeah.
But, no, super. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Steve.
The Houlihan.
Great stuff.
There we go. My co-host Dal Worster and the famous John Houlihan. Also known
I don't know about famous, more infamous.
infamous builds Mr. Dyson's houses, Lord Mayor's office, everything.
Yeah,
Lovely
we've been on a few jobs. Yeah.
Lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Cheers, John. ScaffGap, get involved. If you're not doing it already, you're breaking the rules.
Back of the van.